Hey Tubies, it's Psychic Bob. Well, it is so awesome to be back with you guys. Anyways, I didn't know if I was going to be here today. I have to tell you guys, I had a really rough night. As many of you know, I am a targeted individual, and I honestly believe last night the government tried to kill me. I was hit with massive amounts of radiation. I actually have physical burns on my body. I may have to go to see a doctor. I'm in rough shape. So for that reason today, I'm not going to be doing trance channeling. I am really weak. But I did want to at least come here and spend a few minutes with you guys and do a little bit of teaching about spiritualism. You know, whenever I can sit down with you guys, I always feel a little better. So I'm okay for the moment, but I'm very weak. And as I said, I may have to seek medical care. I'm not going to go into the graphic details. It's really gross and nasty, but suffice to say that they inflicted physical injuries on my body, and I may need medical help. So we're going to see how this goes. But I'm glad you're here. And by the way, one of the good things about today, which I'll show you, one, I'm alive. One of the other good things is, you know, I'm obsessed with my jewelry. I found one of my little blue Spiritualist cross pendants that I thought I lost. This is a little blue cross. It's a few years old. It's made out of steel, like a stainless steel, but it's a blue color. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of blue. It looks darker here. But it's a really pretty blue color. And anyways, as I was cleaning my room up, I found it, and it fell behind a desk, or behind an altar area. So I got that. I'm wearing my little blue cross. And for those of you who have been following this, or maybe you haven't been following, the blue cross is a traditional symbol of spiritualism, the spiritualist religion. As I told many of you, you know, in the early days of spiritualism, many spiritualists considered their religion to be part of Christianity. They thought of themselves as a denomination. And I have to tell you, when I was in the spiritualist church, I always thought of myself as a Christian spiritualist. Now, these days, as many of you know, I have formally left the spiritualist church, not because I disbelieve in spiritualism, but I went on to practice Wicca, and Wicca is my faith. But I still practice spiritualism as well. I feel like the two faiths work together, and so this is a traditional spiritualist symbol, and I feel comfortable wearing it as well. So, anyways, just had to share that with you. Today, what I thought we would do is, I mentioned last week this book. I don't know if any of you were able to get this. It's called the Spiritualist Manual, and it's put out by the General Assembly of Spiritualists. It's actually published by the Book Tree out of San Diego, and I forgot to give you guys the phone number. If you want to call this company, I hope the numbers work. I have to check it, but it's 1-800-700-TREE, tree. So I don't have my phone. I don't know what that translates to, but 1-800-700-TREE. Okay, I'll put the link below. But they're the publishers of the Spiritualist Manual. And this, I recommend this book. This actually is kind of what I call a traditional spiritualist primer, a teaching of the faith of spiritualism. Now, you know, we've also been covering Sylvia Browne's book, Mystical Traveler. I think next week we'll get back to this. And I don't know if you guys want to do it. I was thinking maybe week to week we'll alternate. Like one week we'll do Sylvia Browne, and one week we'll do the Spiritualist Manual. Would you guys like that? Or do you just only want to do one book at a time? Does that confuse you going back and forth? I don't know. Anyways, this week I feel like teaching from this book. And, you know, for those of you who've been asking, a lot of you said, "Say, Bob, I'm curious about spiritualism. You know, I don't really know if we have a spiritualist church near me, but I'd like to be practicing that as my religion. Every time I hear about it, it intrigues me." So that's why I'm teaching this. This is traditional spiritualism. And for those of you who live in the United Kingdom, it's a lot easier to connect to a spiritualist group because it's really big in Britain. Spiritualism started in the United States, but it migrated to the UK, and it's really taken off, and it's stayed there quite strongly. And as many of you in the UK can testify, the Blue Cross is much more widely seen in the United Kingdom than in the United States. Over in the United States, our spiritualist churches now tend to use the sunflower as its symbol. And In fact, I'll put a sunflower up here for you guys to see. Here's a spiritualist sunflower. So there you go. There's a spiritualist sunflower. Now, so we're going to do a reading today from the Spiritualist Manual. And the Spiritualist Manual has kind of the outlines, the teachings of spiritualism. It's got prayers and poetry and ceremonies, all that sort of stuff. This is a chapter called The Nature of the Spirit World. And this article was written by Reverend Converse E. Nickerson, who is a spiritualist minister. So, we're going to read this article, okay? So pull up your chairs here. The nature of the spirit world. The spirit world is very real. It is as important in the circle of man's philosophy as is this planet Earth or any other planet in our solar system. It is as rational to consider the spirit world in a practical sense as it is to study and examine this material world in which we dwell. Upon our careful consideration of these facts rests in a very foundational way all hope and understanding of a future existence for the soul of man. Our philosophy of spiritualism makes practical the consideration of heaven and angels. We do not confuse in some mythical manner our thoughts about the inhabitants of the spiritual spheres. If angels have ever existed, they exist precisely at this moment. And they have a definite sphere of existence. Heaven to us is a reality that now is and ever has been. It does not dwell only in our imaginings about religion or in some special chapter and text of the Bible. All the picturesque language describing heaven is but the beautiful expressions of souls who have been there, or who long to taste of its grandeur and happiness. Heaven is a practically created realm, or it becomes no more than a fairy tale. I'm going to pause right there because, I think this is really good because one of the things, and I have to agree with the author here, is that in spiritualism, they get very concrete. Now, as many of you know, when I do channel, you've heard my spirit guides come through, Rose and Alfred and Fletcher, and they've talked about life over there, like what happened. And I know that Rose has told us about how she thought she was going to have a big mansion in glory. You guys have heard her tell this. Some of you have. And she got there, and they took her to a field, and all there was a doorstep, like a marble plaque. And she said, "Where's my house?" I said, "You have to create it." See, in spiritualism, heaven is created through our consciousness. And that's what many of the spirit people say. So it's very practical, it's very real, and it's something that we'll partake of when we get there. And the author continues on. Because we earnestly accept this truth regarding heaven and angels, we do affirm that our departed friends and loved ones also exist in spiritual spheres. We know that they must exist as personalities who once lived here with us, and that, too, we shall go to dwell with them and be exactly as they are. Now, isn't that true? Haven't I always said that? I've always said it. The spirit guides have said it too, that our personality continues. And in fact, it's in the Spiritualist, hold on a second, the, what do you call it? The 8 principles of spiritualism, which we've touched on before. Hold on a second, let me find it here. Point number 4, okay, we're going to jump up here to the Declaration of Spiritualist Principles in the front of the book. And it says, we affirm that the existence and personal identity of the individual continue after the change called death. See, in spiritualism, they don't teach you just kind of fade into an ether. No, who you are as you are goes over to the spirit world with you. And this is confirmed again here later in this book. Okay. So it says, we know that they must exist as personalities who once lived here with us, and that too we shall go to dwell with them and be exactly as they are. So you're going to be a spirit just like Rose, just like Fletcher, just like Alfred, okay? So we'll be just like that. We already are. We're just wearing a heavy suit right now. Eventually we'll take this on. We'll be over with them. And it says, such an affirmation constitutes practical spiritualism. We are told by spirit visitors who entrance our mediums that there are many spheres of consciousness in the spirit world. Perhaps we may state the matter as spheres or conditions of consciousness. We know that here in our earth world we dwell in different conditions of consciousness. Some of us are keenly conscious of spiritual things, while others make contact with the world about them through very limited material channels. The several spheres of consciousness here are brought about by the development of soul perception, or lack of it. In proportion to our spiritual understanding, we are quickened towards enlightenment of the soul within. Now see, this, I'm going to stop here a second. I think this is really very important. There's a lot in this little paragraph. And see, over there, they actually talk about different levels of vibration, and that as you refine your soul, you move closer to the light, you become more glorious. I've heard Rose and Alfred and Fletcher all say that there are different degrees of glory. So they're, like for example, if you're a drug addict, okay, on earth, and you're into crime and robbing people to, get your heroin fix, well, when you die, you're going to be surrounded by people like that. You're going to be around the low energy drug dealers because your consciousness moves in that sphere of life. And so that energy that you generate will continue on the other side of the veil, okay? So don't think that, your dear friend who's a drug dealer, who probably robbed you blind 20 times, is now died and get to go to the great mansions of glory. You will be in the spirit world as you are on earth. And so as you cultivate your consciousness here, it goes over there with you, okay? So rest assured, those evil people that you can't stand, they're all going to get what they deserve in the spirit world. Just like, for example, the people that have been harassing me from the government, the NSA. You think they're high-level people? No. When they die, they'll learn that they've created their own hell, and they'll go to a hellish realm for all the suffering that they're causing targeted individuals. So for those of you watching who are TIs, don't worry. They will get what they deserve. Okay, now, it says, then let us hold in our minds clearly the thought that spheres are created things. We can create a sphere for ourselves, dwell in it, and so come in touch with other harmonious states of like consciousness. In other words, we may mingle and commingle with those of the visible and invisible world according to the extent that we are attracted to them. Okay? So basically, you're going to hang out with people that are like you. Since we do exist, we function in some degree of consciousness. It may be a distinct sphere and condition, or it may be a blend in graduated power and intensity with other spheres above and below itself. There is a great fundamental law of vibration. This law is an eternal one. It masters every created thing, star, planet, and all connecting creations surrounding them. All molecular activity is governed by the law of vibration. Atoms and whatever man shall discover about them, their power, quality, force, and action, will all be under the law of vibration. It underlies all forces in motion, light, heat, cosmic ray, and every radiating form of energy that we yet know anything about. Therefore, the soul of man, conditioned here in a garment of atoms, i.e., that means our body, must be affected incessantly by vibratory forces. Okay, so let's stop and think about all that. Again, like attracts like. So your consciousness, the way you think, the way you carry that out, sets in motion energy. It creates a field of harmony or disharmony around you. And so this is important to know, because some people come to me for a private reading and they'll say, well, Psychic Bob, my neighbor is lying, cheating, stealing, and killing, and they've got everything in life. They got the brand new Mercedes, they got the $1 million home, money in the bank. So you tell me why I should live a spiritual life. And I say, well, that outward appearance of that grand life of success and money and luxury has not risen their vibration. They may have all the material trappings of success, but the true wealth comes from the soul, comes from the heart. And so when people live in a way that they're disharmonious to their soul and to those around them, to the spirit world, all of that material stuff doesn't really cover up who they really are. And so I want you to remember that, because some of you I know have written me and said, Bob, I'm getting disheartened. I work so hard. I pray every day. I do everything. And yet I don't have anything in my hand. Your wealth, you know, Jesus said, I don't mean to sound like a preacher, but Jesus said it. And he said, don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth where thieves may break in and steal and destroy. Store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. For there where your heart is, you know, it's there where your love be, where your treasure is, there your heart is. And I think it's a real true spiritual principle that our consciousness creates our reality. And I've heard it from many, many souls and seances that have come through that have told me that they're glad they lived the way they did, because when they went to the light, it was so easy to cross over. Now, see, this goes back to vibration, and we've talked about earthbound souls here. Earthbound souls are souls that, for whatever reason, won't leave the earth because they're afraid to cross into the spiritual realm. As a soul, now this is the part a lot of people don't understand. A lot of Christian churches don't teach us, but we have free will. Nobody's forced to go to heaven or to hell. You go, when you go in the spirit world, you will go to the vibration to which you're attuned. And for some people, I guess that would be scary. And so they have the choice to remain on earth. But when they remain on earth, they make no spiritual progress. And this is why we don't want to allow ghosts just to be. I've had cases before where I've gone to people's houses and they have haunted houses, and I'll say, I'm going to help that spirit move on. And people say, oh, no, we love the ghost. We want to keep him. You can't move him on. And I tell these people, as a spiritualist, I am obligated to help that soul. It's not a choice of like, oh, it's entertainment. This is a life and death issue. And eventually all souls will move on. Now remember, in our spiritualist principles, it says, and again I'm going to quote this because we have to always go back to these principles because there is such truth in them, okay? Points number 7 and 8 in the Declaration of Principles. It says, number 7, we affirm the moral responsibility of the individual and that he makes his own happiness or unhappiness as he obeys or disobeys nature's physical and spiritual laws. So as you live, again, this goes back to vibration, you create that reality, and that will follow you into death, okay? But even if you've been a bad person, you end up earthbound, or you do cross over and find yourself in darkness, Listen to this. Point number 8 is really great. We affirm that the doorway to reformation is never, hear that word, never, closed against any soul here or hereafter. So even that old mean uncle that you hated who stole from everybody and was cantankerous, even he'll get a chance in the spirit world to reform and to move to the light. And so I think spiritualism offers for us a great hope. It offers us the understanding that we can grow, we can affirm life, we can improve ourselves, and we can move forward. I think it's wonderful. So we're going to continue with this chapter next week. There's a few more. This, that's going to break down more about conditions in the spirit world, but I think that's enough for today. As I told you, because I'm really tired, I'm not feeling well, and I've got a lot of pain and injuries. But for those of you also, I had to show you, now as we've talked about, in a lot of spiritualist churches in the United Kingdom, as well as in the United States, there is a split going on. Some churches say they're Christian, some say they're not. When I was in the Spiritualist church, we had a Bible up on the altar. We read from it. It seemed very Christian to me. We had crosses in the church. Here's a picture that I want to show you. This is a picture you'll often see in a lot of spiritualist churches, and particularly in the seance rooms, they'll hang these. A lot of spiritualists love Jesus because they believe Jesus is a master psychic medium. And they actually, in the Spiritualist church, and we'll do study on this as well, demonstrate how Jesus demonstrated psychic phenomena throughout his life. And so the Spiritualists claim that Jesus is a master spiritualist, I think really has credence. And, I've always loved Jesus. Even though I'm a Wiccan these days, I still think he's awesome. So this is one of my old pictures of Jesus. This dates back to the 1970s. And it's done on real wood. It's got a lot of gloss on it. It's a decoupage. You guys remember in the 70s, they would shellac, this is shellacked on wood, this image, but it's really solid. And I thought you'd like to see it. So if you go to a spiritualist church, you might see this picture. It's kind of a popular one among spiritualists. But I love it. And anyway, so, for those of you who may, as I said, not be interested in Wicca, but you want a spiritual practice, spiritualism is an option for you as well. And for those of you who are more Christian leaning rather than pagan, spiritualism certainly has a place for you. Now, that being said, spiritualism also has a place for a lot of paganism because, as I said, a lot of churches do not specifically identify as Christian in the United States. And a lot of them, instead of having the blue cross, now have that sunflower that I showed you. So whatever way you want to take it, spiritualism is okay with it. They don't have a hardline preaching view. Because a lot of you read and say, Bob, I want to go to a spiritual church, but I'm kind of scared. Are they going to preach to me and demand I convert to Christianity? No. It's probably one of the most liberal churches. I would put spiritualism in terms of how it handles its truth and preaching very close to the Unitarian Universalist churches. Some of you watching may have attended a Unitarian or Universalist church. Those are different than unity churches. Unity is a whole different subject, but Unitarian and Universalist churches are actually, many of them are very similar to spiritualist churches. So I encourage you to, research it. And if you're looking for a faith that helps you embrace your psychic gifts, that helps you understand more about your understanding of the spirit world, spiritual church, I think, is great. Anyways, I'm going to wrap it up. My voice is going today. But again, if you want to get this book, look it up online. I bought this one on eBay, Spiritualist Manual, okay? And it's published by the Book Tree out of San Diego, California. I'll have the phone number below. Anyways, guys, listen. I'm sorry I'm not up to doing a seance. I'm in a lot of pain. But I thank you for being here. If you think of it, send up a prayer for me. I certainly need it today. I'm doing a lot better than I was this morning, but I'm still a little rough. So I'm taking it light because y'all always tell me, Bob, don't overstrain it. And I'm going to honor that. I'm really working to honor myself. And that means sometimes I may have to, disappoint you guys a little bit. I know you have a lot you hope for and expect from me. But I also like to tell you, I want to be here long term. So St. Bob's going to pace himself. So some days we'll have little breaks here and there. But I'm okay. We're going to get through this. But anyways, I'm glad you're here. Listen, help me out. Like this video, favorite it, share it with your friends. And if you can, hit subscribe. Be part of our channel. We'd love you to be here. All right, we'll be back here next week with another Spiritualist class. Tomorrow is Sunday, and I believe that's going to be the witching hour. So be here 8 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. We're going to have the witching hour. So I'm looking forward to seeing you. That's a live show where we talk about Wicca and paganism, all sort of things magical. I'll see you guys there on Sunday. I love you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your understanding and your patience as I work on balancing my energy and do healing. We'll see you back here tomorrow for the witching hour. Until then, may you always blessed be. I'll meditate on my cross.